Hey everybody over at Black Experience Japan and listeners around the world. My name is Solomon and I am an 11th grade history teacher here in Atlanta, Georgia. So despite the Red Dead Redemption get up, I'm not in the middle of Texas. I'm in the middle of the city, in the middle of, Black Mecca, the United States, Atlanta.
I'm Keith and I'm a math teacher here in California, USA, and I'm also a writer. I published my first book last year, nonfiction book, and I'm actually getting ready to publish my first fiction book very soon. So, and I've done a lot of other things too. I've dabbled in podcasts, I've dabbled in YouTube and things like that. So, I'm on the creative side. I definitely have that side of me.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the latest of our BEJ challenge or BEJ invitation. A few weeks ago, we asked our viewers from across the world to submit videos detailing their Black experience in the country in which they resided. So today we have two Black American teachers for you, right? One that resides in Atlanta, Georgia, and the other one that resides in California, of course, in America. And they're going to detail what it's like for them being Black teachers in America. If you want to share your story as well, right, as a Black person from wherever you are, send us an email at info@blackxjp.com or send us a message on any of our social media platforms at @theblackxjp. Solomon and Keith, thank you so much for your submissions. Now let's get into it.
I want to give a little disclaimer that my experiences as a Black man, as a Black person in this country may be very different than other Blacks in this country because I'm growing up in Atlanta and not maybe, parts of Mississippi, parts of Alabama, Florida, and they're going to be different than people who are growing up in New York and Pennsylvania. It's going to be different than Blacks growing up out west in Cali and places like that. Because Atlanta and its history has always been a very productive city for Black people, right? You've never had to look too far in Atlanta to see Black business, Black infrastructure, Black politicians, Black police officers, Black firefighters, Black doctors. You don't have to look too far to see affluent Black neighborhoods, right? These things are in Atlanta, and they have sort of always been in Atlanta. So my experiences may be very different than those growing up in different places of the country. Both of my parents were very successful. My dad retired from the military, turned around and then retired from the fire department. Very known, very well known and very well liked in the area. My mom was a doctor, still is a doctor, still practicing. So I sort of grew up with just about every opportunity that anyone could want laid before me. I never wanted for anything, never lacked for anything. We grew up, I would say, in a predominantly white side of town. But, you could still find Blacks. I grew up in the suburbs, right? My neighbors were white. And growing up, I don't think I ever had any real experiences with racism, right? I was not aware of my own Blackness in my neighborhood. That sort of came along during my undergrad. I attended a school about 3.5 hours south of Atlanta, and that was my first time being very much aware of my own Blackness. It was my first time being in places where I didn't feel safe at all, feeling as though I was not welcome. It was also my first time seeing, Blacks living in complete poverty, right? Just like with bare minimums, with the bare essentials, with bare nothing. You actually did have to look far to see investment in the Black community in the country, right? You do have to look far to see affluent Blacks. They're scattered. They're there, right? But they're definitely scattered. There's no, really strong Black communities in the countryside of town. And me growing up, this was all foreign to me. I had never had any, racist encounters just as a Black person growing up. But obviously, me going to school, me getting a little bit more cultured on things, sort of shaped my perspective and helped me see the true Black condition in America. So though I did not have much experience of it, of my own, growing up, I was able to see it. I was able to see a lot of the issues that minorities, in particular Black people, face in this country. And I think it probably led to my decision to teach history, right? I studied it quite a bit at the college level and the post-grad level. And one struggle that I think I have just as a Black teacher, sometimes teaching American history in a high school setting, not a college course, but high school, is just seeing how much history is left out, right? And I have to believe that it's done on purpose, right, to tell a certain story. Right, I don't think that the schools are just racist, right? And every teacher that we have is racist, and they're trying to indoctrinate our kids to sort of write out slavery and other things from history. I don't think that's what's going on, on a personal level. But at the institutionalized level of things, there's definitely an agenda being pushed, and I find it hard as a black teacher sometimes to not spend time talking about the impacts of slavery, right? Or if we're talking about world history, I find it hard to not spend time talking about Africa pre-slavery, right? Because, of course, this should go without saying, but Africa had a history prior to European contact, prior to Muslim contact, right? There are things going on there. There are people living there. There's history going on, but, just on our educational level, the things that we teach, our curriculum, we don't get to teach those things, and I find that very depressing. Sometimes you'll be hard pressed to find a black person who can just spout out 10 African countries, but if you ask them about 10 European countries, they could probably very well, list them out just fine. And it's not because, blacks in this country just don't care about that sort of thing. It's our educational system, right? We learn about Western culture. We learn about European culture. And we don't really learn about African culture. We don't learn about African American culture, unfortunately, because that is a thing. And I just find those things hard as a black person, as a black teacher, to not be able to talk about. I don't want to ramble too much. Like I'm already past 5 minutes. But yeah, so again, my name is Solomon. These are a couple of experiences, a couple of struggles that I have and have had and probably will still have living here in Atlanta, Georgia.
So one of the questions you asked is, what is it like to be black in the U.S.? And I was just thinking about it today because it's election time here in the U.S. And this is when you hear almost, it seems like every other day, it's like, oh, the black and Latino vote, black people, this wealth gap, this inequality gap, this gap with home ownership and all these types of things, a lot of negative things, about black people. So honestly, when I thought about it, I was like, the experience of being black in the USA, I feel like, is not to be the owner of your story. I feel like so many people feel like they know the black narrative from seeing us in movies, hearing us in music, seeing us in professional sports. We can be very visible in those spaces, but when these images pervade their mind, so when they truly meet a black person, when they meet them for the first time for real in the flesh, these stories are in their head. So you kind of have to rewrite that narrative every time that you encounter somebody. At least that's what I found throughout my life, and that can be really frustrating because sometimes I don't have the time, or I don't feel like taking the effort to do all that rewiring. And some people are easier to deal with and more accepting than others, but others are really stubborn, and it's really hard to give them the narrative that's really me, other than the one that is from the movies or from rap music or whatever. I originally grew up in Texas, down south in the U.S., so my background's a little unique. I spent a lot of time, several years in the U.S. military, so I spent a lot of time around really diverse people, but not really around black people. I grew up around some black people, but a lot of my friends weren't black when I was younger. So, and it's kind of that way now, just because the circles that I run in professionally and just in other places, I just don't see a lot of black people, unfortunately. But one of the unique questions that you asked was, what are the advantages of being black? And I had to think about that one for a while because I thought that was a pretty cool question. But honestly, I think it's that even though we're visible, in my experience, people have tended to underestimate what we're about as far as what we can do and our capacity for work and things like that. Like the whole myth of black laziness and all this stuff is alive and well, and it's out there. And people, whether they unconsciously or not, they believe that. They kind of act like that sometimes. At least that's been my experience. So the advantage is that you're kind of free to do your own thing. People kind of leave you alone because a lot of times, here in the U.S., they don't want to deal with you. You know, they don't want to deal, especially now. It feels like it's too hot to handle sometimes. It's like, man, I don't want to feel like a racist. I don't want to feel like you know, I'm going to get in trouble for saying something weird, so they just don't deal with you, which, you know, that's frustrating as well. But in my case, in my life, I found that gives me the opportunity to do my thing, to whatever that thing is, you know, whether it's writing or leading or whatever. It just kind of gets people off my back. So it's a double-edged sword, kind of being overlooked, but then again, you can kind of flower and grow your skill set, and that's what I've done throughout my entire life. Is the reality of being black discussed in America? Like I said, I feel like it's discussed among black people, but outside of black circles, that reality is hard to really get the true narrative out there of real black people out there to people who really need to hear it. Because a lot of black people know the true narrative. They're black, so a lot of them aren't living the stereotypical life that people that are portrayed in the movies and on TV and all this stuff. They're just normal people. So that it's hard to get that narrative to overcome the prevailing one. Compelling story. I'll end with this because I know you're going to get a lot of these. But ever since I got married last year, my wife is Asian American, and I've just seen the difference between when I go out with her and when I go out alone. Now, previously, when I was single, you know, I didn't have anything. I was just usually on my own, so I didn't really judge it. I didn't really have anything to base it off of. But after I got married, I saw the stark difference that would be between the way people treat me and look at me if I'm with her than if I'm alone. And that's real. That's facts, as they say. And that's kind of frustrating to deal with, but it's the reality of the situation. And it's just something that I've become more aware of as I've gotten a little bit older. And obviously it's not fair, it's not right, but as you know, a lot of your videos can attest, a lot of people you've interviewed, they have the same experience. And it's been all over the world too. I've traveled a lot. Like I said, I used to live in Japan. I've been to China. I've been to Korea. I've been to Europe. I've been all over. So you see it in a lot of places you go. It's like dark skin. There's like a stigma to it, and people just look at you no matter what language you're speaking or how you're talking. So that's all I gotta say. I don't want to make this video too long. Really appreciate what you're doing.
If you again want to be a part of the BEJ challenge, right, send your video to info@blackxjp.com. What is it like to be black where you are? Who are you, by the way? First of all, let us know who you are and what it's like to be black where you reside. Also, you can use your cell phone to record the video, but if you're doing so, remember to turn your phone to the side, landscape mode, right? And use the back-facing camera if you're gonna use your cell phone. Otherwise, you can always use mirrorless camera, DSLR, just get your story and send it over to us at info@blackxjp.com. That is the BEJ challenge. What is it like to be black where you reside? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and remember to subscribe to this channel for black experiences across the globe. Primarily, of course, we reside in Japan, so Japan and across the world. Until next time, guys, bye for now.